Good morning, everyone. We spoke last week about the deeper significance of the menorah, and there's some further insights that I'd like to share together with you. It's really something very deep. One of the aspects which brings us to the inspiration that the Torah is the word of Hashem and can in no way be compared with any form of literature is shown also by the concept of the light of the menorah. I explained already previously that the last verse of the description of the dedication of the sanctuary, the holy place, it says in the last verse, this is chapter 7, verse 89, the following Jerusalem Bible and the Chumash. When Moshe came to the temple meeting to speak with Hashem, it might even mean that Hashem should speak with him, he heard the voice, doesn't even say speak, midaber. Midaber means it was really a unique voice. And he spoke to him from the top of the cover, which is over the ark of the testimony, from in between the two cherubs, and he spoke with him, spoke to him. So this is a reference, as we explained already, to the proof of the divinity of the Torah. And the Gemara says, what is the proof? Why is it called the ark of the proof? So look at the word Aaron. Aaron has as its root light. Why is it called Aaron? Because from there the Torah goes out to the whole world. Misham Tetzei Torah. Now the source of the teaching of Hashem the whole world is from the book of the Torah, which is in the ark, and also from the tablets of stone, which had upon them the Decalogue, which is the word of God for all mankind. And what is the proof? So, for this we go to the first verse of yesterday's Parsha. But what did it said Hashem spoke with him, the Midrash says, Hashem spoke to Moshe, and what did he say to Moshe? He said to Moshe, you've got to speak to Aaron, and said, Daber Aaron l'matei elav. Now this sort of phrase, which you find quite frequently in the Chumash, on the surface of it seems to be just a repetition. What does it mean, speak to Aaron and say to him? What's the difference in speaking and saying? You know, they say, with regard to pulpit sermons given by rabbis, that very many of them, the ability to speak a great deal without saying anything. In other words, to speak a lot of words and they're not saying anything. Sometimes the message doesn't even get through because of the verbosity, the many words that you use describe certain things. But what does he really say? Sometimes the person says something, but he can't say it in a few words. He says it in whole hours or even pages and pages of description. So it's like this. The essence of the written Torah is that which was given, the words exactly given by Hashem in a precise manner. The Dvar is like the, one call them the verbal inspiration of the words that Hashem said by direct prophecy to Moshe, and Moshe had to say them directly, those words. And those are the ones he wrote down afterwards as well. V'matai lavat amira means to explain. In other words, saying is always Torah Shebal Peh, v'matai lav. Dibur is like Torah Shebichtav. And what did he say to him? That when you raise up the lights, then the lights should go at Pnei HaMenorah, and the 7 lights should burn. So, why is it not called when you kindle the lights? Can you give the answer?
Because kindle is just to light, where this is to raise up.
To raise up to a high level. So we've already explained, as is explained in the Haftarah speaks the vision of Zechariah, of the menorah, but not really the menorah which was in the Beit HaMikdash, which is in the second Beit HaMikdash in the time of Zechariah, and which exists in the first Beit HaMikdash, but it's a reference to the divine menorah, the menorah which is in the heavens. In other words, that one of the deeper aspects of the light which is kindled below is to try to reach the light which is kindled above on the spiritual plane. And we already saw in the previous year, I mentioned this to you from Rabbeinu Bechaya, who goes deep in these matters, that you will find menorah here is spelt with a vav or without a vav. You tell me, it's inside the text. Amul Pnei HaMenorah, with a vav. And also, in the next verse, and Aaron did so, Amul Pnei HaMenorah, is it spelled with a vav or without? With a vav. He kindled the lights, like Hashem had commanded Moshe. So why in verse 4, V'zeh Maseh HaMenorah, this is the way in which the menorah should be made in practice with gold. Is it with a vav or without?
Without.
Mikshah Zahav is your one piece of gold. Kamareh, according to the vision which Hashem showed Moshe, Kain Asayit HaMenorah, so he made the menorah with or without? So this commentary explains all these are hidden aspects of the written Torah. What do we call whether a word in Hebrew is spelled with a vav or without a vav, although it's pronounced the same way?
Defective.
What's it called in Hebrew?
Maleh is when it's with, it's full, and chaser, it's missing actually, literally missing. If the same letters. Like kemach maleh, and I don't say kemach chaser.
Very good. What is the difference in what does it mean opposite the face of the menorah? And the face in Hebrew is lifnim. And what do we call lifnim?
Inside.
In Hebrew, inside. The name menorah is the inner aspect of the menorah. And the divine menorah, the light of the divine menorah, that is the full menorah, the fullness of the divine inspiration. But Maaseh menorah speaks how you have to do it here below. How you build the menorah below, this is done in a material manner. Whoever made it. usual interpretation, really Bezalel made it. But it was made in such a way that it was like the appearance which Hashem showed to Moshe. As Moshe was shown, he was shown how to do it in practice, but at the same time he was shown also the divine menorah. And this is what it's described in the, it's not just the Midrashim that say this, it's the prophet Zechariah who says it. Prophet Zechariah explains that the menorah, the heavenly menorah which he saw, teaches that the second temple, where they have a lot of difficulties in really preserving and carrying on with the building of the temple, the purpose of the temple was to bring the spiritual light of the Torah down below. And how does one do it? One does it by kindling the menorah below with a light, but the light is turned entirely to the hidden light. Which is the hidden light? It's behind the parochet, behind the curtain that divided the holy place from the Holy of Holies. In the Holy of Holies was the divine light of the written Torah and the tablets of stone, which bring light to the whole world, as they're doing today still. And there's no question that the Pentateuch, as the basis of the whole of the Bible, is in principle also a source of inspiration to all the nations of the world, because it contains very many teachings that have been adopted by the nations of the world, and also it contains many scientific discoveries that have only been discovered through the progress of science, which are demonstrated already in the written Torah, if you go into it deeply. But how do you bring it down below this written Torah? That is the purpose of the people of Israel. People of Israel must become a kingdom of priests for all nations of the world. In order to do that, so within the nation of Israel, where the tribes as a whole, they're dedicated to spread the model country in a material way, the whole of the people of Israel, which with all the different material needs that are needed by the people of Israel, but they are brought to inspiration through the teachers of the Torah, who are the Kohanim. And if there are no Kohanim, then the teachers have to take the place of the Kohanim, to go and spread the Torah Shebaal Peh to the whole of the nation, that they in turn should spread it to the world. Now, the sages say, what was the great miracle which was shown through the Ark of the Covenant, also known as, we see, Aron Ha'idut? It's the Ark of the Covenant. Now we know also the covenant is symbolized by the number 8. It's the covenant of Brit Milah. The covenant of the giving of the Torah is after 7 times 7, the 50th level. That's all the concept of the covenant with Hashem, who is beyond time and space. But the spirit of Hashem, which exists in the world, is expressed through the concept of 7, throughout the whole of the Tanakh and the whole of Jewish life, the basis of the significance of 7. Also you will find that nearly all the basic passages in the Chumash, there's a multiple, either 7 itself or multiple of 7, of the key words, which has been uncovered more recently, even more deeply, also through the use of computer knowledge, which has given this ability. And the major aspect in tradition is 7 or multiples of 7, which go all the way through the Tanakh. So really the menorah gives us the inner light, which is contained in the Torah. So here it's also represented. You have here, first of all, there's 7 passages in Chumash that deal with the menorah. And when the menorah is written full, it's a reference to the divine menorah, up in the spiritual realm. When it's without the vav, it's a reference to the physical menorah. So I want to bring you the further passage which completes what Rabbeinu Bachai says here on this passage, where he speaks about if you look carefully, you'll find that the verse 4 carries on menorah without the vav, it's reference to the physical menorah. El mul panei menorah is l'ha'alot, to bring up the physical lights up to their divine level, which is shown primarily to the western lamp. Because the western lamp, which according to most tradition was in the middle lamp, the flame was turned towards the Holy of Holies, and that's called the Ner Maravi. And the Ner Maravi, it had on it a lamp, which although they only put in enough oil to last for the night, but it kept on kept on burning until the 24 hours had passed. In order it should be a constant light. Today also we have the custom to put outside the Aron HaKodesh in the synagogue a Ner Tamid, a light that shouldn't go out at any time, even also in the day, it kept on. And that is to remind us of the miracle that occurred, that this was oil which was burning not on the basis of the natural time, because the natural time for this volume of oil which was put into burn was just overnight, and it burnt 24 hours, it should be constant. This miracle continued also the beginning of the second Beit HaMikdash, but it stopped when Shimon HaTzadik died, it stopped. And then, because that was the time Shimon HaTzadik was still able to represent the Torah and the observance of all the mitzvot, even when he was confronted with the power of Greek civilization, when Alexander the Great went and spread Greek culture to all the barbaric nations that he conquered, where he also opposed their religions, which were barbarian, which were considered barbarian religions. When he came to Judea, when he saw and met with Shimon HaTzadik, who was such a great saint, there's even the legend, also in Greek sources, that he got off his famous white mare and prostrated himself in front of him, and it said, "The image of this man goes before me in all my battles." What lies behind this is, as is well known from both sources in the Talmud and Midrash, as well as Greek sources, that Alexander the Great, he permitted complete religious freedom to the Jewish people, and he gave support and great admiration to the great wise men of Israel, and even the debate, like on the basis of the major problems of Greek philosophy, which he studied under Aristotle. Aristotle told him that really the source of wisdom lies with the Jewish people. As we know, the present alphabet, which goes back to the Greek alphabet, which in turn goes back to the alphabet, it's called alphabet. The alphabet, and he said, Kadmos was the origin, Kadmos is the power that comes from Kedem, from the east. This goes back to even the Shlomo HaMelech, where Shlomo HaMelech was able to spread the enormous high level of the wisdom of the Torah to the nations of the world. The book of Kohelet, for example, is clearly a work which you see when analyzing it, that was intended for the times when the nations of the world used to come to learn from the wisdom of Shlomo HaMelech, as is described in the book of Kings, the book of Chronicles. And it said there also the wisdom of Shlomo HaMelech spread far and wide, and it's carried on in influencing also the initial aspects of greater Greek wisdom. And they recognized the superiority of the wisdom of the people of Israel over all others. But what happened when Shimon HaTzadik died? Then the spiritual level of the people of Israel became contaminated, and most of the people in Israel, they assimilated to the ways of the Greeks, because the Greeks, the successors of Alexander the Great, they were still clinging to idolatry on the Greek level, but combined also with other barbarian levels, as a result of which they gave great persecution to the Jews. And only the Maccabees, they changed the situation. They brought purity back in, and the miracle of Hanukkah is really the continuation of the miracle of the Western lamp, the same type of miracle. Except the Hanukkah There was only enough oil put in for one day, for one night, and it lasted even for 7 days. So it's another 7 days, 8 days. And the significance of that miracle is great, because that was a time when the Jewish people as a whole were assimilating fast, because they were enticed by the methods that were used by the Greeks. So many of them left the religion. It's only the merit of the courage of the Maccabeans who opposed all this, who rekindled the light of the menorah. So I want to bring for this, to understand it more deeply, the words of Rabbeinu Bechaya, which at the beginning, for those who've got a Jerusalem Bible, should turn to Latat Tzaveh B'nai Israel, which is chapter 28 in the book of Shemot, verse 20. I'll quote you here from some of it. It says there, the oil that you should put in the lamp, it says should be very pure oil. Katit lama'or, it's got to be cut to produce light. Katit, we see, is, numerically speaking, the addition of the 410 years of the first Beit HaMikdash and the 420 years of the second Beit HaMikdash, making 830 katit years when the two Beit HaMikdash stood. Now this midrash, which hints at the two Mikdashim, it also is fit to hint for the third Beit HaMikdash. But we can say it first gives a hint for the concrete Beit HaMikdash. And because both of them are going to be destroyed, therefore the hint is given in the word katit. Katit means to break up. The oil has to be crushed. In other words, unfortunately, these two Beit HaMikdash, they ended in complete destruction. But the third Beit HaMikdash, the reason why it's not mentioned, because its time is unlimited. And where did it? It's a katit lama'or. The two destructions take place in order to produce the great light. Which is the great light? The light referred to by the prophets when there's a kumi oli kivarech. Prophet Yeshaya says, there comes a time when the people of Israel are asked, go and raise up your light, my light, raise up the light of Hashem in the world, because the time has come, your light has come. In other words, this is a promise for the third Beit HaMikdash, when the Shekhinah, the Divine Presence, will come back, and it will go on forever. As it says, Lahalot Ner Tamid, says in that verse, in order to produce a constant light. So, I want to add to this, there's certainly a hint for us in this. The menorah is the symbol of the state of Israel. I've even explained that Magen David is really a menorah on a plane. The menorah goes all the way through the Tanakh, and all the way through Jewish life in many different ways. And the purpose of it is to teach us the purpose of the people of Israel. Even if the world is filled with darkness, we have to keep the light of spirituality burning. And the halot net hamid. According to the explanation I gave already last week, that really the vision of Zechariah, which is so deep, is a deeper description of the power of the divine menorah, and this had reference also to the political situation of the second temple period, because they were finding many obstacles. They were also in the time of the second temple period, when idolatry became weakened as a power, especially amongst the people of Israel. But what took its place? Its place was taken by the power of the development of the human intelligence and separating from divine intelligence, which was the Hellenistic spirit. Not the Hellenistic spirit on the level of Alexander the Great, but the level of many who said, well, if we follow discovery on the scientific level, and we take man as the measure of all things, one of the basic Protagoras, one of the basic early philosophers of Greek philosophy. If man is the measure of all things, then you have to develop the mind of man. And this carries on till today. Today also, the world recognizes that the essence of the human being is the mind. But they forget that the source of the mind is Hashem, who's above the mind, above time and space. That's one of the great challenges that faces us. And even worse, that those who go and think that with our own mind we can decide what is the difference in right and wrong, because that's also got to be decided just by the human being. This has developed a humanism which says human beings can decide themselves what's right and wrong. This has brought about the terrible situation, which is very frightening, that there are many different laws of what's right and wrong, and democracy, so-called, is just following the voice of the people, and the people might decide what's right and wrong. They might say, well, to kill all the gypsies and Jews, that's right, and to be cruel in warfare is also right. They'll come to all sorts of conclusions on the basis of the voice of the people. Vox populi is vox Dei, and the Torah says definitely. The Torah says no, you have to. It's not good enough. The Noachide code has to be connected with a constant awareness of God. And if you don't have that constant awareness of God and connect it with a practical application in life through the Noachide code, then civilization is doomed. You find today in the name of God, in the name of the God of the Tanakh, of the Bible, ultimately, because ultimately the Quran, as well as the Christians, they take as their basis the Torah of Moses. They do accept the fact that Moses was the first one to reveal the truth of God to the nation of Abraham. Preceded him. It's also on the basis of the Torah of Moses. They accept the Torah of Moses. But what they do with it, they distort it. They forget about the only true path, which is the path of the Prushim, not the path of the Tzedukim. The Tzedukim will deny the power of the Torah Sheba'al Peh. But without the Torah Sheba'al Peh, well, all tradition, which teaches us, even the Noachide code, it's got to be based upon the Word of God. And once you go and make your own decision on the basis of the distortion of Western civilization based upon Greek civilization, so it brings about the present situation, the name of God. You can do the most cruel acts and constantly abuse entirely the major principle of the Noachide code, not to murder, not to steal, and not to destroy the family through immorality. And these are things today that are unfortunately constantly being perverted by so many false religious groups. And then he carries on like this. He says that there's a hint also here. What's the Ner Tamid? The Halot Ner Tamid. This is a hint at the Western lamp, which is the main lamp of all of them. Because all the other 6 lamps, they turn towards the middle lamp. And that middle lamp, or the Western lamp, that middle one turns towards the Shekhinah. The Shekhinah is the divine power, he said, which is really the 10th level of spirituality. And that's the concept of Lashon Tamid. The 10th level hinted also in the Aseret HaDibrot. The Aseret HaDibrot, which contain a hint for the whole Torah, to know the 620 words, with letters which correspond to Keter Torah, or the mitzvot, and that is the concept of Lahalot Ner Tamid, to bring a lamp that will burn forever. And this is what is mentioned in the following midrash that he brings. It says, you Hashem, you give sustenance to the whole world, and you have given a commandment, Koboni Lachmi. You should bring my offering to my bread. That means my spiritual power of sustenance for the spirit of mankind. You bring light to the whole of the world, and you give us the commandment to kindle the light. That's the Masio Dechotichso. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, not that I need any light from flesh and blood, because with my light I bring light to the whole world, but in order to raise you up, Lahalot Etchem, to bring you to Baalotcha, to a higher level. So this is the basic concept. Rabbi Meir says, what Boruch says, lamps which Aaron kindles, they're more precious to me than any of the light-giving bodies are fixed in the heavens. Why? Because when the different princes at the consecration, first 12 days consecration, each one brought their offerings to the altar, so the tribe of Levi did not do so. So the spiritual level of Aaron, he was sad. Because Boruch said to him, all of them, they dedicate themselves to one Chanukah, to one higher consecration. But you're there to produce Chanukah constantly. That's why there's a hint, the Chanukah of the Chashmonaim, and also a hint, in fact, there's another Midrashim, to the constant duty to bless the priests. The blessing of the priests also is connected closely with bringing the light of the oral tradition to the world. And that's the deep blessing which we should bring. And that's the connection, if you look carefully, between the Birchat Kohanim and chapter 67 of Tehillim, which is the structure of the menorah, which we, in many communities, is recited when you do the counting of the Omer, because it's also based upon the structure of the menorah. It's also written on the Shiviti, which is found in many synagogues in front of the Chazan. Then you find that the form of the menorah, and the verses on the menorah are the verses of chapter 67, which the old Midrashim say is the Magen David. When I mentioned this on Shabbos, in the Rosh I gave also on this subject, so someone comes up and says, but the Magen David, we have to destroy it because it's a symbol which wants to take the place of the true flag of the people, which is the Torah. So I said to him, what do you mean? You're mistaken. The Magen David is really, it has in the center a space, main state, the six-sided star. This is the menorah. The menorah is described in the early authorities as being a menorah, it's a heavenly menorah even, if you go into it deeply. And the whole of that chapter 67 speaks about the way in which the people of Israel will bring about the redemption of the whole world, when the whole world recognizes the power of Hashem. So we see today that the symbols which were taken for the state of Israel, the menorah, I said Magen David is a menorah, if you want to understand what it is. This is the deepest explanation of the Magen David. Some say why is it connected with David? Because David means Dod. Dod means the great friend, uncle. Even today, the uncle was the friend of the family. The David HaMelech is known also that he was the beloved of Hashem, and that's the two triangles, which also in old Hebrew script, the Dalet is in the form of a triangle. So that's the concept of even the letter D that came out through priests to also the other European alphabet. So it means Dod, and Yedid is really a question of being one who loves Hashem and loves mankind, which the example was David HaMelech. But the deeper explanation is given in the old Midrashim, which say that chapter 67, Lametzeach Mizmor LeDavid Shir, so it said Mizmor LeDavid, so that was the whole of that chapter was really inscribed on the shield of David HaMelech. He fought for the spiritual power of the people of Israel to be so strong that it will change and bring light, happiness and peace to all human beings. So therefore The essence of this teaching is as follows, and that it also applies to us today to understand what's going on. We see there's, Baruch Hashem, an enormous power given here in Israel for the power of the Torah. It's growing constantly in every different area. I mean, even people far removed, but they come to the Kotel, they get inspiration. There's all types of levels which people in Israel have to pass through. But surely what we see today, in Yetz Hashem, we hope that the power of Torah will grow so strong, and if the parameters of the Torah would be observed ultimately by also the political leaders of the Jewish people here in Israel, if they would really internalize the message of the menorah and the Magen David on a higher level, including also the blue and the white, which is the tzitzit, which is the similar symbol. All these symbols, they shouldn't remain just an empty external shell. They've got to become the lifeblood and the power that will bring the people of Israel to be recognized by all the nations. Because we can say even today, if we can see it coming, if we would concentrate on this, that means also not to provoke the nations. That's a very important principle, no provocation. That is a distortion of the truth of the menorah. And that's the message given in Haftarah. Even the Second Temple period, its greatness was Lo b'chai v'lo b'koach, the developed Torah Sheba'al Peh, the oral tradition. And the warning was, there's going to be no king, there's going to be no real Kahuna Gadol might also be contaminated. Make sure that you develop the spiritual power of Torah Sheba'al Peh. Unfortunately, the Jews also, the sin of Chinam, didn't go in the right way. There were many political movements that thought, we've got to try and take over kingship. We know what happened to what sort of kings did we have? Like everyone knows, Agrippas even and Herod. These were the kings of the Second Temple period, which were a politicization of the whole concept of the Jewish people. But so in our time as well, we've got to follow that and get the spirit to become strong. They were here in Israel Israel and Yerushalayim and the Kotel, they're acting as a magnet for the whole of Jewry to return to the truth of Hashem and to learn Torah and to fulfill it in practice. In Yetz Hashem, that's the way. If everyone do his maximum, then the heavenly Beit HaMikdash will drop down from heaven, they say. In other words, the heavenly Beit HaMikdash is really created through the kindling of Aaron, of his followers, the kindling of the power of the Torah, to make sure that Jews, each one will do his maximum. This will bring about the building of the Beit HaMikdash, of the future. So I say, it's a Zed of Pshat, we say in the Tefillah, Yiratzon Lefonecha, Shibone Beis HaMikdash B'mheira V'yomeinu B'sein Chelkeinu B'soyro Seyechu. The Beit HaMikdash should be built, and please give us our portion in the Torah. Every person's got his portion in the Torah, in a different way. Every person is different. Jews are all different. Everyone, if he will do his maximum to fulfill his specific portion, his talent that Hashem has given him, to make use of them to spread the true spiritual teaching of the Torah, and the highest level possible of reaching the true saintliness introduced through the Torah, the Kedusha, that is the way in which the Beit HaMikdash will be built. All attempts to go and say, we've got to build a temple now. We've first got to build the heavenly temple before we can have the earthly temple. All those attempts that go and want to use different political means or other means to go and take hold of this, all by divine providence. When even you've got to be very careful, we're not allowed to go up onto the Temple Mount, except under certain special conditions. It's dangerous to life and so different ways of security. But the idea is that we'll get a salvation to try to build the earthly temple before we've done our part to build up the heavenly temple. The heavenly temple is built up through what every person does to achieve his maximum in following the path of Torah that applies to him. It's Hashem, that's the way we see the fulfillment of Shebona Beit HaMikdash, Meher V'Yomeinu, but the condition is, give us the ability to fulfill our maximum portion in your Torah, and to Ein Torah Ela Ora, to include more the light of Torah in our lives, and then we'll see the fulfillment, as it says, Ki ha'choshech yichas ha'eretz, the last chapters of Yeshaya. Darkness covers the earth, and a deep mist over all the nations. But upon you, Yisrach Hashem, Hashem will cause you to shine, and you'll bring the light in the darkness. Amen.